Hey, have you ever paused and asked yourself, when was the last time I felt truly alive? I don't mean entertained or productive. I mean that deep, visceral spark, the kind you can feel in your bones. It's a question that's surprisingly tough to answer, especially for a lot of men. Somewhere between childhood and grown-up life, something went missing. As kids, we burned with drive, curiosity, hunger. We believed we were meant for something bigger. We challenged the world, dreamed wildly, acted on reckless hope. But then came deadlines, bills, meetings, expectations. And before we knew it, the fire had faded. It doesn't die all at once. Instead, it seeps away, replaced by fatigue, cynicism, a quiet grief. Not the obvious kind. You won't find it in tears or rants, but the silent ache of a man who used to feel, and now hardly does. And the worst part? Society tells us this is maturity. We wear responsibility, stability, predictability like badges of honor. But deep down, we know it isn't maturity. It's surrender. We didn't outgrow our fire. We buried it not because we wanted to, but because nobody ever taught us how to protect it. This isn't a story about personal weakness. It's the outcome of a silent, relentless war we're never taught to fight. An inner war against a culture designed to starve our flame. If we don't name it, face it, resist it, we risk becoming a generation of men who are functionally alive but spiritually extinct. We're not talking about a midlife crisis. We're talking about the slow death of something sacred, something we should have been taught to defend and to honor in each other. Instead, we were told to tone it down, get in line, grow up, let go of our wildfire. So here we are, tired, confused, surrounded by distractions, yet starving for purpose. We work harder than ever, but feel emptier inside. We scroll endlessly but don't feel seen. We chase goals and forget why we set them. This isn't living, it's drifting. You can see it in our bodies, in our eyes, in our relationships. We joke about it. We medicate it. But the question never really leaves us. Is this all there is? What's incredible is that it doesn't have to end this way. What was once lost can be remembered. What was once dimmed can burn again, if we're brave enough to go looking. If we dare to reclaim what we were never taught to protect. Because under the numbness, under the noise, there's still a flicker. And sometimes that's all it takes to start a fire. Now, let's be clear. This fire isn't about aggression, ego, or alpha posturing. It's not chest beating or dominating others. It's much older and deeper. It's the part of a man that longs to build something meaningful, to protect what matters, to rise when it's easier to collapse. It's the quiet will to live with direction, not just motion, to endure suffering because there's a purpose worth the pain. Carl Jung called it the animus. Not just masculinity, but the principle of action, clarity, inner structure. It is that internal compass that whispers, "This is who I am. This is what I'm willing to fight for." You see it in the eyes of a man who has nothing but still stands with pride. You hear it in his silence, and you feel it when he says no to what would be easy. This fire is not loud. It doesn't beg for attention, but it refuses to die. But in our modern world, that kind of fire is dangerous. Not to others, but to the system. A man with fire can't be easily controlled. He doesn't follow trends, he doesn't need validation. He questions, resists, creates, demands substance over performance. So society devised a subtler strategy than outright killing fire. That would be too obvious. Instead, we starve it, shame it, medicate it, distract it, redefine it until we forget it ever existed. Until fire becomes fatigue, clarity becomes confusion, direction becomes whatever works. One by one, the messages pile up, and the flame dims until we don't even notice it's gone. Until we forget we were ever meant to feel more than fine. But here's what the system can't erase. Memory. Somewhere in every man there's a memory of burning, caring so much it hurt, believing in something that made no logical sense. That memory lives on, buried but unbroken. If you can feel even a flicker of it, you owe it to yourself to go back and find what tried to kill it. Because your fire isn't gone. It's waiting for you to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. Before the job, before the mask, before the noise, there was a you that didn't need permission, a you that still burned. The real question is, Will you answer him? Will you let him speak again? Or will you keep dimming that voice just to survive a world that fears your heat? What exactly is killing men's fire today? It's not one thing, it's 1,000 small cuts. A slow erosion of spirit disguised as progress. We live in an age that worships comfort. Every app, every ad, every message whispers. Avoid effort, seek ease, stay safe. But fire is born in friction, resistance, discomfort. You don't build character by staying warm. You build it by walking through the cold on purpose. Comfort isn't the enemy, worshipping it is. We used to teach boys to climb trees, to fall, to get back up. Now we teach them to self-soothe, to avoid risk, to be nice. Nice isn't the same as good. Nice often means compliant, emotionally neutered. Modern culture tells men to be gentle. That's not wrong. But somewhere gentle became passive. It became permission to stop striving, stop building, stop protecting. Strength was rebranded as aggression. Desire became selfishness. Conviction became toxicity. So men began hiding the parts that made them men, not to become better humans, but to avoid punishment by a system that fears their depth. We tell men, be useful, be agreeable, don't take up space. And in doing so, we reduce them to tools that produce, provide, stay silent. You want to know how to kill a fire? Starve it of oxygen. That's exactly what this culture does to a man's soul. It wraps him in comfort and expectation, tells him he's already enough, and shames the instincts that could reignite him. Ambition, restlessness, urgency, vision. Those things don't make a man dangerous. They make him awake. But an awake man is a threat to a world built on obedience. So we medicate him, mock him, overcorrect him until all that remains is a shell that smiles on cue but doesn't burn anymore. And we call that success. But deep inside, he knows the truth. He wasn't made to be managed. He was made to move, to struggle, to stretch, to create. That fire inside is not a flaw. It's a compass. Ignoring it doesn't make it disappear. It makes the man disappear. No system thrives when men awaken, which is why everything is designed to lull them back to sleep. Netflix, alcohol, porn, comfort food, infinite scrolling. It's not just about what entertains you. It's about what makes you forget you ever wanted more. But here's the thing, when men want more, they stop complying. And when they stop complying, things start to shift. That's why the first revolution is always personal. A man who reclaims his fire doesn't burn others. He becomes a torch, a guide, a living contradiction to the numbness around him. He reminds the world what real strength looks like. So let's dive deeper. Why does that fire die inside so many men? The truth is, it starts early. From the moment we're little boys, we're taught to suppress our tears, our hunger, our wonder, our rage. Nobody shows us how to understand these feelings. They just tell us to hide them. Be a big boy, they say. Man up. And so we learn to wear a mask that whispers, I'm fine. I'm in control. Even as we're crumbling inside. Psychologists call this emotional masking. And over time, the mask becomes our face. We forget what it feels like to want without guilt, to speak without second-guessing, to feel without fear. Then life arrives with rejections, failures, heartbreaks. Each one another brick in the wall until we call it realism. But it's really learned hopelessness. Why bother trying if nothing will change? Better to coast, better to numb ourselves before we get numbed. But numbness isn't safety. It's suffocation. Slowly it chokes out the flame that once gave our life light. The irony is brutal. The very culture that once shamed a boy for being too passionate now punishes him for losing that passion. Too cold? Too weak? Too angry? Too aggressive? You can't win, so you retreat into silence, into distractions, into deadness. Yet the ache remains. That primal whisper. Is this it? Is there more? That whisper is the last flicker of your fire, trying to speak. If you're brave enough to listen, you might remember who you were before the mask, before the pressure, before the noise. You might feel that spark again, faint though it is. But don't think this is accidental. It's architecture, systemic. Society wasn't designed to nurture that flame. It was designed to mold you into something useful, not something alive. It starts with work. Modern workplaces don't reward passion. They reward obedience. Not creativity but conformity. Not initiative but loyalty. You climb by fitting in, not standing out. You learn to stay quiet, to lower your flame, to become professional. And at home, the story repeats. Your value is in your output, your paycheck, your stability, your image. You're expected to provide, protect, hold steady, but not to feel, not to dream, not to question your own exhaustion. Ask for space, for purpose, for more meaning, and you're told to be grateful for what you have. Suck it up, they say. Silent suffocation. School lays the foundation. We take the wildness out of boys. We medicate their restlessness, punish their imagination, reward their compliance, kill their big questions. We call it education. We say we're preparing them for the real world, but what we're really preparing them for is to forget they ever burned. So they grow up, and when the emptiness hits, culture sells them fixes that dig the hole deeper. Endless TV, booze, porn, comfort food, infinite scrolling. Each one whispers, avoid effort, seek ease, stay safe. But fire was born in friction, in resistance, in discomfort. You don't build character by staying warm. You build it by walking through the cold on purpose. Comfort isn't the enemy, but worshiping it is. When comfort becomes the goal, courage disappears, and with it, the fire. We tell men to be useful, agreeable, don't take up space. In doing so, we reduce them to tools that produce, provide, stay silent. Want to know how to kill a fire? Starve it of oxygen. That's what this culture does to a man's soul. It wraps him in comfort and expectation, tells him he's already enough, and shames the instincts that could reignite him. Ambition? That's ego. Restlessness? That's anxiety. Urgency? That's toxicity. Vision? That's selfish. Yet these are the very things that make men awake. And an awake man is a threat. So we medicate him, mock him, overcorrect him until all that's left is a shell that smiles on cue but doesn't burn anymore. And we call that success. But inside, he knows the truth. He wasn't made to be managed. He was made to move, to struggle, to stretch, to create. That fire inside him isn't a flaw. It's a compass, pointing toward his true purpose. Ignoring it doesn't make it go away, it makes the man go away. No system thrives when men awaken. So everything around us is designed to lull us back to sleep. Netflix, booze, porn, comfort food, endless scrolling. These aren't just distractions, they're anesthetics, numbing the part of us that still remembers how to feel. But here's what you need to know. The first revolution is always personal. A man who reclaims his fire doesn't burn others. He becomes a torch, a guide, a living contradiction to the numbness around him. He reminds the world what real strength looks like. And there is hope. Across the globe, small tribes of men are forming, not with weapons but with questions. They gather in circles not to perform, but to reveal, to speak without armor, to feel without shame. They call it men's work, inner work, and it is anything but soft. They meditate, they journal, they breathe, they sit with discomfort instead of escaping it. They learn to father themselves, to walk without applause, and in the silence, they find something unexpected. The fire never left. It was just buried. They lean on wisdom older than the noise, stoicism, Jungian psychology, myth, ancient philosophy. Not to show off how smart they are, but to remember how to live. They become students again, students of themselves, of life. They trade hustle for healing, success for depth, performance for presence. And it shows in how they walk, in how they speak, in the silence they carry like strength. These men are hard to market to, hard to manipulate because they've remembered what matters. They're not protesting or fighting culture. They're simply exiting it and building their lives beneath the noise. They are crafting a new model of manhood, one based on direction, not domination, on inner fire, not force. These are the men who will raise better sons, who'll love deeper, who'll lead differently because they know how to feel, and they're not afraid of it. This quiet revolution isn't about fanfare. It's one man, one flame, one choice at a time. They're no longer asking, what should I do? They're asking, who must I become? And that shift changes everything. When a man stops reacting and starts remembering, his life becomes sacred again. Not perfect or flashy, but real. True to his instincts, true to his nature, true to the quiet voice that always knew. They build homes that are havens, careers that are callings, and they do it without applause because applause isn't the goal. Freedom is. And one day, another man will see that quiet flame, remember his own, and the spark will spread. That's how it spreads. If you're still watching, there's a reason. Something inside you recognized that spark, that visceral, unmistakable feeling of being alive. You felt it for a moment, maybe years ago, and you forgot how to keep feeding it. But it's still there, waiting. Your flame hasn't died. It's been buried under comfort, obligations, expectations. And now you have a choice. Let it stay buried or give yourself permission to tend it again. The very first step isn't about tactics or strategies. It's a question. What did I stop wanting that I used to live for? Not what should I do today, but what did I once crave so much it consumed me? Ask it and then lean into the discomfort of not knowing. Let the question sit in your chest. You don't need an answer yet, you just need to feel the hunger. Once you've planted that question, create space for silence. Turn off your phone. Close your laptop. For one moment, do nothing but breathe. Sit with your eyes closed or stare at the sky. Notice how your mind wants to jump to the next thing. Plans, worries, to-dos, and gently bring it back to stillness. In that quiet, your buried flame will whisper. Next, reconnect with your body. Go for a walk without headphones or podcasts. Feel your feet connecting with the ground. Notice the rhythm of your breath. Maybe you climb a hill or walk to a park bench. Let your senses register what you normally rush past. The cold morning air on your skin, the weight of your limbs, the pulse at your temples. These are reminders that you're alive in a way no screen can replicate. Then, pick up a pen and paper, no smartphones, no apps, no notifications. Write something nobody will ever read. It could be a letter to your past self, a confession you haven't voiced, or a story you've never dared share. Let the words flow without judgment. This is not journaling for productivity. It's excavation. You're digging through the rubble of your own life to find the embers of your old fire. After writing, turn down the noise. Literally, dim the lights, lower the volume, step away from music and podcasts. Sit in near darkness or in the soft glow of a lamp. Breathe slowly and deeply. Notice how quiet transforms discomfort into insight. In that low-volume world, you can finally hear the murmur of your own instincts, the compass you've been ignoring. Cultivate daily rituals that nourish rather than numb. Maybe it's a morning stretch, an evening read of something challenging, or a weekly hike in nature. These aren't chores. They're offerings to your inner flame. They tell your body and mind, you matter. Over time, these small acts coalesce into a sanctuary, a space where your fire can rekindle, free from the constant drag of obligations. Boundaries become your allies. Learn to say no to extra meetings, mindless scrolling, invitations that drain rather than refill you. Saying no isn't selfish. It's essential. Creates breathing room. And with that space, you'll learn to say yes to creative projects, genuine conversations, moments of stillness. You protect your fire by refusing to feed the things that smother it. Seek out your tribe, but look for quality over quantity. You don't need a crowd. You need a circle of men willing to show up without masks. Maybe it's a weekend retreat, a book club, or a local men's circle. You gather not to perform but to reveal, to speak openly about hope and fear, ambition and doubt. In shared vulnerability, you'll witness other flames reignite, and yours will grow brighter by reflection. Return to the wisdom traditions that honor fire. Stoicism teaches you to face discomfort. Jungian psychology guides you through your shadows. Myth and ancient philosophy remind you that your struggle is part of a story older than you. You're not chasing quotes for Insta. You're mining perennial truths that resonate in your blood. Let these teachings be your map, not your prison, tools to help you navigate your inner world. Above all, remember this. You weren't made for obedience. You were made for radiance. This isn't about aggression or dominance. It's about direction and depth. No one will give you permission to burn. The system rewards compliance, not conviction. So give yourself that permission. Fan the ember with disciplined action and compassionate curiosity. Protect it with boundaries and rituals. And then, let it illuminate your choices. Today, choose to reclaim your life. Not tomorrow, not when circumstances are perfect. Today. One honest breath at a time, decide that you matter enough to feel again. Because when you fan your spark, you don't just change your world. You remind everyone around you what it means to be alive. Your flame is waiting. Will you answer its call?